I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic has been booked for UFC 295 in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic is a done deal. UFC heavyweight super fight between Jon Jones, heavyweight champion Jon Jones, and Stipe Miocic will headline the UFC 295 card on November 11th at Madison Square Garden. UFC President Dana White announced the booking in a recent video. Jon Jones won the vacant heavyweight championship by defeating Ciryl Gane by first-round submission at UFC 285. He returned after a 3-year hiatus to prepare his physique for the move to the heavyweight division. Jon Jones immediately called out Stipe Miocic following the win, and the fight has finally been booked after months of speculation, as well as other opponents being pitched for Jon Jones' first title defense. The two legends will square off in the main event in one of the biggest fights in UFC for 2023. Yeah, it'd probably be the biggest fight of the year, right, if you think about it. Miocic returns after more than 2 years away from the octagon. Here's my problem. Miocic lost his last fight to Francis Ngannou at UFC 260 and opted not to take a fight for the interim title later that year. Before falling to Ngannou, Miocic defended the title by winning his trilogy fight with UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier. He regained the title in their rematch at UFC 241 by fourth round TKO. Jon Jones is viewed by many. Jon Jones is the greatest UFC fighter of all, the greatest MMA fighter of all time, right? Stipe Miocic is also in the conversation as, I can't even say argument. You would say that Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight in UFC history, right? I don't know if MMA history. I would say UFC history. UFC 295 also marks the promotion return to Madison Square Garden in New York City. Yeah, I mean, they always have that, not always, but the UFC has had that fight, the November fight, in Madison Square Garden a few years in a row. Right, I believe Conor McGregor had a fight there. I know George St. Pierre versus Michael Bisping, they fought there. I think that was the Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw fight. Rose Namajunas, she won her fight versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I believe. I believe that was one of the first times I saw the UFC didn't see it, but when the UFC had the fight in Madison Square Garden. But yeah, this is going to be a great fight. Personally, now I am an MMA casual, proud to admit that, but I personally, with all the talk about Ronda Rousey coming back and getting an immediate title shot, I don't agree with that. Henry Cejudo coming back and getting an immediate title shot, I agreed with that. Jon Jones coming back and getting an immediate title shot, I agreed with that. Stipe Miocic, I personally don't love the idea of Stipe Miocic getting an immediate, and I get it, it is what it is, but I personally didn't love the idea of Stipe Miocic getting a title shot. He's been off for 2 years. He got viciously knocked out in his last fight. From what I remember, like Stipe Miocic, he fought Cormier. He lost to Cormier, and didn't he take like a year off because he, for some reason, he just took like a year off for some reason, and Cormier fought like Derek Lewis or something, right? And then Stipe Miocic came back, got another title shot after taking a year off. He defeated Cormier in that fight, and then he fought Ngannou, got knocked out viciously, and he's been off for 2 years. So, personally, I don't think Stipe, I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve, I don't understand why, after being viciously knocked out in your last fight and not fighting for 2 years, that you walk right back into a title shot. But that's beside the point at this point, right? That's just semantics, but that's just like my opinion. But personally, I'm Jon Jones. I'm Team Jon Jones. I believe Jon Jones is going to defeat Stipe Miocic in Madison Square Garden, his home state, New York. and then he'll most likely retire, right? Like it seems like all signs are pointing to that. So that should be interesting. Let me know who you are rooting for. John Jones has a lot of haters for good reasons, but you can't deny John Jones is the greatest MMA fighter you have ever seen. Look at his resume. Fighters he's defeated, most of them are Hall of Famers. Most of them were former and current champions. His record is he's only had one quote unquote loss. I believe it was I think it was a 12-5 elbow or something like that when he was on top of, I believe it's in Matt Hamill. I think it was Matt Hamill, and he was like hitting him with the elbows from top, and then they stopped the fight, and they said that John Jones thought he won the fight, but they said he was disqualified. He was like, what? Matt Hamill was just like left on the ground, bleeding out of his face, and John Jones thought he won the fight, and then he found out he was disqualified. So I believe that's his only fight. I think it was Matt Hamill. I believe that's John Jones' only loss in the octagon, but for the most part, he's never lost a fight. I don't see Stipe Miocic, after coming off of a vicious knockout 2 years ago, coming back and defeating John Jones. But let me know your opinion of this story. Also, I would like to see who else is going to be on this card. We've heard some rumors about Cody Covington versus Leon Edwards being on his card. I think that would make more sense than Leon Edwards fighting Kobe Covington in Abu Dhabi. I don't, it would be a cool fight. But to me, like we all want to see Kobe Covington and Leon Edwards on the undercard of John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. The press conference was going to be just completely mad, right? That'd be insane. But let me know what other fights you would like to see on this card, UFC 295 in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Let me know, who are you rooting for? I'm Team John Jones. Let me know, are you Team Stipe Miocic? I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a story about UFC heavyweight champion John Jones will be defending his undisputed heavyweight championship versus Stipe Miocic at UFC 295 in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.